This is Madi Diaz, and I'm a Monster. Plastic Moon took a good year to record. We spent about a year writing the songs, and my guitar player and I had just moved down to Nashville, Tennessee, and we spent a couple months just kind of flushing out writing. We hadn't, been writing. We felt we were musically kind of stifled in the Northeast area, so we moved south, and it just kind of all started to pour out, and just song after song after song. And but then we went into the studio with John Alasia, and kind of the production on it, we tried to kind of keep it song-centric. So hopefully, just each of the songs kind of, were allowed to represent, their mood. To Be Alone's kind of bouncy and spoony, and If You Only Knew is kind of haunting and wandering, and yeah, Love You Now is just a sad old love song, and yeah, that was Plastic Moon. Let's Go we wrote in the basement of our first apartment together, my guitar player and I. The melody had been kind of floating around. Kyle had been kind of making the track for a little while, and it was just kind of on repeat in the basement, and I would come and go from the house, and finally I wandered downstairs, and it just happened. It was one of those songs that luckily just happened. We recorded it a couple times. We recorded it in our basement and did a demo, and weren't happy with it, and recorded it for a 10-gun salute, and just wanted to take it with us because we were just psyched on that song. We felt like it had a good long life, and we just wanted to make sure that we did it right before we put it to bed. So I think on Plastic Moon that we did it some justice, hopefully. I think the songwriting process is kind of different every time. It never kind of appears in one way, shape, or form. Sometimes it's a sonic thing. Sometimes I'll pick up something and you just hear something right away, and it just kind of falls out of whatever instrument or out of the air somewhere. And sometimes I'll be walking down the road, and you think of something in your brain, and you just have a sentence, and you write it down, and that lives there for however long. And then you can come back to it, or maybe you go home and you have to write it right away. It's totally different every time. It's never happened in one way, but eventually you do have to probably sit down and write the song. That's the important part. I was lucky. My parents were always playing music in the house, so I grew up around a lot of music. My dad plays piano and actually owns a music school, and my mom is just kind of a big fan of music, so I grew up with a lot of she called herself a pretty punk. She liked David Byrne and B-52s, and loved the Ramones, but still wore purple suede boots instead of black rocker chick boots. But yeah, I grew up around a lot of music. My dad definitely made me play piano from 5 on, but it always, was the thing that I would go back to. I definitely tried a lot of other things. I was going to maybe be a veterinarian, honestly. I thought I was going to be a large animal vet, but music was the thing that I escaped to. And eventually when I was 18 and push came to shove out of the house, that was what I went to. Lucked out. So many influences that sometimes it gets confusing, because I like a lot of stuff. I think, my dad had really eclectic taste, and my mom had super eclectic taste. It would be anywhere from Frank Zappa and the Beatles to Fantomas and I don't know, NWA and TLC and Janet and Whitney, and so I don't know. I think majority probably, pop-based influence. But I mean, I love people or records that are really sonically based records. Feist's last record is really sonically driven. It's not as pop structured as the last one, but it just sounds incredible. And I think Peter, Bjorn, and John have beautiful sounding records, and it changes, and there's so much music out there right now, and I don't know, the world is a very inspiring place. We're lucky. In music you have these moments where you just have there's no direction. You feel like you've been going in the same direction and you just are plateauing, but then something will happen and you can't help but take that as a sign that you just have to keep going. And just I'm so lucky that, I have had such incredible people around me and such a great team around me. And, this last year has been really hard, but then has had amazing, it's John Alasia, and working with him on the record, that must mean I don't suck too terribly. I don't know. And, we've been fortunate enough to, get on some really awesome tours over the last couple months. It's definitely up and down though. And we've had some cool song placement stuff over the last couple of months as well. So there are little blips of hope. It's definitely a trying industry, and maybe you're a fool to keep going, but there's nothing else that I'm really that good at, so let's be honest. That's serious. I mean, I can totally still bartend my way, around the block, so. Let's not count on that. Let's hope that we don't have to count on that. But I don't know, yeah, I've been really lucky. Honestly, I was just buying whatever cable and just trying cables, and they were always breaking and always breaking and always breaking. And when I bought a Monster cable, I didn't have to buy another cable. And so I was just using a Monster cable, and that's the cable that I use now. And now I'm lucky because I have lots of them. It's never failed me. Not yet. People definitely comment on the wooden ends a lot. It's so retro. It's very fashionable. I'm so hip. I am Madi Diaz, and I use Monster cables because the music matters.